The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stood silent as the holographic display flickered to life. 12 species, each representing thousands of worlds, watched as a blue planet rotated slowly in the center of the chamber. Earth, they called it. A small world, orbiting a yellow star in the outer reaches of the galaxy. Supreme Counselor Thexlar raised one of his forearms and the image zoomed closer. Cities dotted the planet's surface, primitive and chaotic compared to the planned metropolises of Council worlds. Small spacecraft moved between the planet and its moon, struggling against gravity with chemical rockets that belonged in a museum. "This is the species that refuses our generous offer?" asked Counselor Vistana, her crystalline body chiming with displeasure. "These humans? They have declined membership in the Galactic Council," confirmed Ambassador Kelvan, standing at the center podium. "Furthermore, they claim ownership of 17 star systems we have designated for resource extraction. They say these systems fall within their sphere of influence." Laughter rippled through the chamber. A sphere of influence? These creatures had barely left their own solar system, yet they spoke as if they commanded a fleet that could challenge the Council's might. "Their response to our final ultimatum?" asked Thexlar. Kelvan's face darkened. "They told us, and I quote, 'Come and take them.'" The laughter died. In 10,000 years of Council history, no species had dared such defiance. The Council maintained peace across the galaxy through overwhelming force and diplomatic unity. Species either joined willingly or were pacified swiftly. There was no third option. "Military assessment?" Thexlar's voice carried no humor now. A holographic Gentari officer materialized beside the Earth display. Supreme Tactician Velthor was a warrior from a proud military tradition, his scaled body bearing scars from a dozen campaigns. He gestured, and new data appeared around Earth. "The humans possess 47 military spacecraft of significant size," Velthor reported. "Approximately 2,000 smaller combat vessels. Their weapons are primitive: nuclear warheads, kinetic projectiles, and early-generation laser systems. Their defensive installations on Mars and Earth's moon are formidable but outdated by our standards." "And their ground forces?" asked a counselor. "Extensive but irrelevant. This conflict will be decided in space." Velthor's confidence was absolute. "I estimate total pacification within 3 rotations. 1 rotation to breach their outer defenses, 1 to establish orbital control, and 1 to accept their surrender." "You seem certain," observed Thexlar. "I am certain, Supreme Counselor. I have studied their broadcasts, their entertainment, their history. They are a violent species, yes. They war among themselves constantly, but that is the behavior of primitives. They have never faced a unified force like ours. They have never encountered shields that laugh at their nuclear weapons, or weapons that can crack planets. They will fold." Thexlar considered this. The Council had not waged a true war in 3,000 years. Minor skirmishes, yes. Police actions against pirates and rebels, certainly. But a full military campaign? It seemed almost wasteful to deploy their strength against such weak opposition. Yet the humans had refused. They had dared to claim Council resources. They had insulted the greatest civilization in galactic history. "How many ships do you require?" Thexlar asked. Velthor's equivalent of a smile crossed his face. "The 3rd Fleet will be more than sufficient. 300 ships against their 47. We will be merciful in our overwhelming victory. Perhaps that mercy will teach them respect." The vote was unanimous. The Council would teach humanity its place in the galactic order. 3 weeks later, the 3rd Fleet emerged from FTL at the edge of the Sol system. Velthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory, and watched as the fleet formed up in perfect formation. 300 ships, each one a masterpiece of Council engineering, shields that could withstand the core of a star, weapons that had cracked moons. A fleet that had never known defeat. "Scan the system," Velthor commanded. "Locate all human military assets." Detecting 47 major warships in orbit around the 4th planet Mars, his sensor operator reported. Additional defensive satellites around the 3rd planet, Earth. Multiple military installations on Earth's moon. "And their fleet disposition?" "They are holding position, Supreme Tactician. They are not advancing to meet us." Velthor frowned. Every simulation suggested the humans would charge forward, hoping to use the planet as cover while employing their primitive tactics. Instead, they waited. "Cowardice, perhaps?" suggested his second-in-command. Perhaps, Velthor agreed, though something felt wrong. He had studied human military history extensively. They were many things, violent, irrational, emotionally driven, but cowards. Their history suggested otherwise. These were creatures who had fought wars that consumed entire continents, who had built weapons capable of destroying their own planet, who had reached for the stars despite every logical reason to stay home. All ships advance, Velthor ordered. Maintain formation. Prepare weapons, but do not fire unless fired upon. We will give them one last chance to surrender. The fleet moved forward, a wall of metal and energy that spanned thousands of kilometers. They passed the orbit of the 6th planet, then the 5th. Still, the human ships did not move. Receiving a transmission from the human fleet, communications reported. Put it through. A human face appeared on the screen. Female, young by their standards, wearing a military uniform that seemed almost quaint. Admiral Sarah Chen, according to the data file. Supreme Tactician Velthor, she said, her voice steady. Turn your fleet around. Leave this system. This is your only warning. Velthor almost laughed. Admiral Chen, I command 300 warships, each superior to your entire fleet. You have 47 vessels of primitive design. Surrender now and we will show mercy. Continue this futile resistance and we will take your system by force. Chen's expression did not change. You have been warned, Supreme Tactician. What happens next is on you. The transmission ended. Velthor shook his head. Human arrogance was astounding. Did they truly believe they could stand against the Council? Did they not understand the mathematics of their situation? Continue the advance, he ordered. Maintain combat readiness. These humans will learn their lesson soon enough. The 3rd Fleet crossed the orbit of Mars and still the human ships did not move. They simply waited. 47 vessels against 300 like insects preparing to face a storm. Velthor's tactical display showed the human fleet's position clearly now. They had retreated behind Mars itself, using the planet as cover. A defensive position, certainly, but one that would only delay the inevitable. Prepare to divide the fleet, Velthor commanded. We will surround the planet and eliminate them from multiple vectors. They cannot hide behind a planet forever. As the 3rd Fleet began to split into 3 attack groups, Velthor allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. This campaign would be over before it truly began. The humans would learn that defying the Council was futile. But deep in his warrior's heart something whispered a warning, something about the way Admiral Chen had looked at him, not with fear or desperation but with something else entirely, something that looked almost like pity. The 3rd Fleet moved into position around Mars, weapons charging, shields at maximum. 300 ships prepared to end humanity's brief moment of defiance. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for this moment, since they first looked up at the stars and wondered what else was out there. They had no idea that humans had spent their entire existence perfecting the art of killing things that were bigger, stronger, and more powerful than themselves. They were about to learn. The 3rd Fleet completed its maneuver around Mars, 3 battle groups moving into position like the jaws of a great beast preparing to crush its prey. Velthor watched his tactical display with satisfaction. The human ships remained clustered behind Mars, trapped between the planet and his overwhelming forces. All groups in position, Supreme Tactician, reported his tactical officer. Excellent. Open a final communication channel to the human fleet. Give them one last chance to surrender. Admiral Chen's face appeared again on the screen. Behind her, Velthor could see the bridge of her flagship, the UED's Indomitable. Human crew members moved with practiced efficiency, their faces showing determination rather than the fear he expected. Admiral Chen, your position is hopeless, Velthor stated simply. We have you surrounded. Our weapons can destroy your fleet in minutes. Surrender now, and your species will be welcomed into the Council as a protected client race. You will have peace, prosperity, and guidance. Chen's expression remained cold. You're offering us slavery. We offer you civilization, Velthor corrected. Your species is young, violent, and dangerous to itself. Under Council guidance, you will learn peace. We learned peace, Chen replied. We just never forgot how to fight. Last chance, Velthor. Turn around and leave. You've been warned. The transmission ended abruptly. Velthor sighed. Human stubbornness was proving tiresome. All ships target the human vessels. Prepare to fire on my command. Let us end this quickly and move to the acceptance phase of the campaign. The 3rd Fleet's weapons locked onto their targets. Plasma cannons capable of melting battle armor charged. Missile batteries loaded with warheads that could crack asteroids armed themselves. Energy shields that could withstand direct hits from stars pulsed with power. Fire, Velthor commanded. A wall of energy and metal erupted from 300 warships, converging on the human fleet's position. Velthor watched as his weapons reached their targets, already composing his after-action report in his mind. Then everything went wrong. The human ships didn't try to withstand the assault. Instead, they scattered like leaves in a storm, their chemical drives burning at what sensors reported as dangerous levels. They dove, climbed, and twisted in patterns that made no tactical sense, avoiding the majority of the Council's perfect opening salvo. "How did they?" his tactical officer began. "They predicted our firing solution," Velthor realized with shock. "But that's impossible. Our tactics are based on 10,000 years of warfare. How could they possibly?" "Multiple launches detected," sensors screamed. "Thousands of missiles inbound from Mars itself." Velthor's display lit up with red markers. Missiles poured from hidden silos on Mars, from orbital stations he had dismissed as civilian infrastructure, from the planet's 2 moons. "Not hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. Point defense, intercept them," Velthor ordered. The Third Fleet's defensive systems engaged, destroying missiles by the hundreds, but there were too many. And these weren't the primitive nuclear weapons the intelligence reports had described. These missiles moved with intelligence, dodging, weaving, and timing their attacks to overwhelm point defense systems. The first missile to break through hit the Righteous Sword, a destroyer on the fleet's left flank. The warhead detonated, but instead of a conventional explosion, it released a pulse of X-ray radiation so intense it overwhelmed the ship's shields in seconds. The destroyer's hull began to glow, then melt. "Nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers," his science officer reported in disbelief. "The missiles are turning nuclear weapons into directed energy. Our shields weren't calibrated for—" Another ship died. Then another. The missiles were crude, primitive even, but effective. They didn't need to destroy the Council ships outright. They just needed to overwhelm their shields long enough for the secondary wave. And the secondary wave was terrifying. Kinetic projectiles inbound. Thousands of them. Velthor watched as human ships, far smaller than his own, fired what appeared to be simple metal rods. No explosives. No energy weapons. Just metal accelerated to ridiculous speeds. The rods hit his formation like the fist of an angry god. Where the radiation weapons had weakened shields, the kinetic harpoons punched through. They weren't elegant. They weren't sophisticated. They were simply metal moving so fast that nothing could stop them. The cruiser Honor's Light took 3 harpoons through its core. The ship didn't explode dramatically. It simply stopped working, drifting dead in space with 3 perfectly cylindrical holes running through it from bow to stern. "All ships, return fire. Kill those human vessels." The Third Fleet responded, and now the true battle began. Council ships, with their superior shields and weapons, began landing hits on the human fleet. The destroyer UED Defiant took a plasma blast that vaporized its entire forward section. It kept fighting. The cruiser UED's Revenge lost propulsion but continued firing, its crew apparently content to die in place rather than surrender. "They're not trying to survive," Velthor's second-in-command observed with horror. "They're trading their lives for ours." He was right. Human ships would absorb hits that should have forced them to retreat, but instead they pressed forward, firing until they were nothing but debris. It was insane. It was wasteful. It was terrifyingly effective. Then the truly unthinkable happened. "Supreme Tactician, the human fighter craft they're ramming us." Velthor watched in absolute shock as small human fighters, too tiny to even register as threats in his original assessment, deliberately crashed into Council ships at full speed. They aimed for weapon systems, shield generators, and bridge sections. Each fighter carried enough explosive to damage but not destroy, unless they hit the right spot. The battlecruiser Eternal Vigilance took a fighter through its main shield generator. The shields collapsed, and before they could be restored, 3 kinetic harpoons reduced the battlecruiser to scrap. "This is impossible," Velthor whispered. "No species does this. No civilized race practices suicide tactics. It's been 10,000 years since species were barbaric enough to value victory over life," his second-in-command finished. "Supreme Tactician, these humans aren't civilized. Not by our standards. They're still warriors in the old sense. They remember how to wage total war." The battle raged for 6 hours, 6 hours that felt like an eternity. The Third Fleet's superior technology and numbers told in the end. The human fleet was destroyed. Every ship turned to debris or disabled beyond repair. The orbital defenses around Mars were silenced. By every metric, the Council had won. But Velthor stood on the bridge of eternal glory and looked at his casualty reports with cold dread. 97 ships destroyed. 43 more damaged beyond field repair capability. 30% of his fleet gone. Against an enemy that shouldn't have been able to scratch his paint. Scan for survivors, he ordered quietly. We will honor the human dead by rescuing any who remain alive. Sir, we're detecting no life signs from any human vessel, sensors reported. Then after a pause, sir, we're detecting something else. Multiple objects launching from the human planet Earth. They appear to be ships, sir. Dozens of them. They're entering FTL. Velthor felt his blood run cold. Where are they going? Unknown, sir. But based on their vectors, they're scattering throughout Council space. He understood then. The human fleet hadn't been trying to win. They had been trying to delay, to buy time for those ships to escape Earth. And now they were loose in Council space, these humans who practiced suicide tactics and fought like ancient barbarians. Get me Supreme Counselor Thexelar, Velthor commanded. Tell him we have won the battle, but tell him also that we have lost something far more important. What have we lost, sir? Velthor looked at the debris field where the human fleet had made its stand. Where 47 ships had held against 300, where humans had died to the last rather than surrender. We have lost the advantage of ignorance, he said quietly. We thought we knew what humans were capable of. We were wrong, and now we must face what we have unleashed. The transmission to Earth went unanswered, but as his fleet began the slow advance toward the blue planet, Velthor couldn't shake the feeling that the humans were waiting, planning, preparing, and that terrified him more than anything else. The Third Fleet limped toward Earth, its once perfect formation now ragged with gaps where ships used to be. Velthor stood on the bridge of eternal glory and stared at the blue planet growing larger on his view screen. He had reported his victory to the Council, but they had heard the uncertainty in his voice. 97 ships lost, against primitives. Supreme Tactician, we're receiving a transmission from Earth, communications reported. Put it through. The face that appeared was not Admiral Chen. She was dead along with everyone in the human fleet. This was someone new, an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. He wore a simple suit rather than a military uniform. I am President James Martinez of the United Earth Government, the man said. His voice was calm, almost conversational. Supreme Tactician Velthor, I'm told. You've won your battle. Congratulations, you destroyed our fleet and killed 40,000 of our people. Now you're coming for Earth itself. Surrender and no more must die, Velthor replied. He meant it. The human resistance at Mars had earned his respect, even if their tactics horrified him. Martinez smiled, but there was no humor in it. You don't understand us at all, do you? You think because you've won a battle, you've won the war. You think we'll surrender because it's the logical choice. But Supreme Tactician, humans don't surrender. We can't. It's not in our nature. Every species can surrender when faced with annihilation. Not us, Martinez said simply. Do you know what my job was before I became president? I was a history professor. I taught military history. Human military history. Let me share something with you, Velthor. We've been fighting wars since before we learned to write. We've fought wars over land, resources, religion, and ideas. We've fought wars that killed hundreds of millions of our own people. We've built weapons that could destroy our entire planet. And we came very close to using them. Multiple times. Velthor felt unease growing in his chest. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what you're facing, Martinez continued. You're about to invade Earth. You think your superior technology will carry the day. You think your 203 ships now will be enough. You're wrong. You have no fleet. Your orbital defenses are destroyed. What can you possibly do against us? Martinez's smile widened. Everything. We can do everything. You see, Supreme Tactician, we've spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war. Not space war, ground war. We know every trick, every tactic, every method of making an invader's life hell, and we're going to teach them all to you. The transmission ended. Velthor felt a chill run through him, but he pushed it aside. The human president was trying to frighten him with words. Words wouldn't stop plasma cannons. Prepare landing forces, he commanded. We will take their major cities and force their government to surrender. Keep civilian casualties to a minimum. We are not barbarians. The invasion began 2 days later. The Council's 5th Landing Corps, 30,000 soldiers equipped with the finest weapons and armor the galaxy could provide, descended on New York. The city had been partially evacuated, but millions remained. Velthor had given strict orders: secure the city, avoid civilian casualties, establish control. The dropships landed in Central Park. Soldiers poured out, expecting resistance. They found nothing. The park was empty. The surrounding buildings were silent. "This is too easy," muttered Commander Zektar, leading the ground forces. "Where are they?" He got his answer 3 minutes later. The buildings around Central Park erupted with weapons fire, not from military positions, but from windows, rooftops, and basements. Every human with a weapon seemed to be shooting. Old men, young women, even children barely old enough to hold rifles. They fired with desperate intensity, and while their primitive bullets couldn't penetrate Council armor, they didn't need to. They aimed for joints, visors, exposed equipment. "Return fire. Suppressing fire only," Zektar ordered, trying to follow rules of engagement designed for civilized warfare. But this wasn't civilized warfare. This was something else entirely. The humans fell back deeper into the city, and the Council forces pursued. That was their first mistake. Every street was a trap. Every building was a fortress. The humans had turned their own city into a killing ground. They fought from sewers, subways, and rooftops. They used the buildings themselves as weapons, collapsing structures onto Council soldiers. They employed explosives hidden in debris, in vehicles, in anything that looked innocent. Worse, they didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like people defending their homes, because that's exactly what they were. A grandmother would smile and wave at Council troops, then detonate a bomb hidden in her coat. A child would run up asking for help, leading soldiers into an ambush. The Council forces, trained to distinguish between combatants and civilians, found no such distinction existed. "They're all combatants," Zektar reported to Velthor in disbelief. "Every human capable of holding a weapon is fighting. There are no civilians, only enemies." New York took 3 weeks to capture, and the cost was staggering. 8,000 Council soldiers dead for one human city. And when they finally secured it, when they raised the Council flag over what remained of the city center, the humans did something unthinkable. They destroyed it. Nuclear warheads hidden throughout the city detonated simultaneously, not enough to harm the planet, but enough to turn New York into a radioactive crater. The Council forces there, along with 50,000 humans who had refused to evacuate, died instantly. Velthor watched the mushroom clouds rise from orbit and felt something break inside him. They destroyed their own city, killed their own people, just to kill our soldiers. "Supreme Tactician, we're receiving transmissions from President Martinez," communications reported, voice shaking. Martinez's face appeared again. Behind him, Velthor could see what looked like a bunker carved into rock. The president looked tired but determined. "You took New York," Martinez said. "Congratulations. It cost you 8,000 soldiers and 3 weeks. We have 247 major cities. How many more do you want to buy at that price? How many more soldiers are you willing to lose?" "Because we're willing to lose everything." "You're insane," Velthor whispered. "No," Martinez corrected. "We're human. There's a difference. You Council species, you evolved past this kind of warfare. You fight with rules, with honor, with the goal of minimizing casualties. We never forgot how to wage total war. We never forgot that sometimes, to protect what you love, you have to be willing to destroy it yourself rather than let an enemy have it." "We can destroy your entire planet from orbit," Velthor threatened, though the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. "Yes, you can," Martinez agreed. "And if you do, those ships we sent out before the battle at Mars? They're scattered throughout Council space right now, hidden, waiting. If Earth dies, they have orders to make sure the Council learns what human vengeance looks like. We've already reverse-engineered your FTL drives. We know where your worlds are. We know where your civilians live. Kill Earth and we'll spend the rest of human existence making you pay." Velthor stared at the human president. This wasn't a bluff. These creatures would actually do it. They would sacrifice their homeworld and spend generations exacting revenge. It was madness. It was terrifying. It was utterly, completely human. "What do you want?" Velthor asked, knowing he had already lost this war. "Leave," Martinez said simply. "Take your fleet and go. Tell your council that Earth is off limits. Tell them that humans will join the galactic community when we're ready, on our terms. Tell them that if they ever come back, we won't just defend ourselves. We'll come for them. The council will never accept these terms. Then the council will learn what it means to fight a species that doesn't know how to quit, Martinez replied. Your choice, Supreme Tactician. Leave now, or we'll teach you exactly how nasty humans can be when you threaten our home. Velthor looked at his casualty reports. 97 ships lost at Mars, 8,000 soldiers dead in New York, and the humans were just getting started. They hadn't even deployed whatever other horrors they had prepared. I need to consult with the council, he said finally. You have 24 hours, Martinez said. After that, we start hitting your fleet with everything we have left. And Supreme Tactician? We have a lot left. You've only seen us defend. You haven't seen us attack. Trust me when I say you don't want to. The transmission ended. Velthor sat in his command chair and realized with cold certainty that he was not going to win this war. The question was whether he could end it before the Council lost not just this fleet, but something far more valuable, their illusion of invincibility. He opened a channel to the Galactic Council and prepared to deliver the most difficult report of his long military career. Humanity had won, not through superior technology or numbers, but through sheer, unrelenting, terrifying will. 6 months had passed since the disaster at Earth. The Council had refused Velthor's recommendation to withdraw, calling it cowardice. They sent him reinforcements and ordered him to continue the campaign. He obeyed because he was a soldier, but he knew they were making a terrible mistake. The Council learned this the hard way when the human attacks began. The first strike hit the mining colony of Keltorath, 300 light-years from Earth. The colony was civilian, home to 2 million Gentari who extracted rare minerals from the planet's crust. It was protected by a small garrison fleet of 20 ships, more than enough to deter pirates. They weren't prepared for humans. 3 human ships appeared without warning, their FTL signatures masked by technology the Council didn't fully understand yet. They weren't large vessels, nothing compared to Council battleships, but they moved with terrifying precision. Before the garrison could respond, the human ships had destroyed the orbital defense platforms and disappeared back into FTL. Then the real attack began. Human soldiers dropped in stealth pods, seized the colony's fusion reactors, and transmitted a simple message. Evacuate now. You have 6 hours. The Council fleet arrived in 4 hours, confident they could trap the humans on the ground. They found the colony empty of civilians and the human soldiers gone. 30 seconds later, the fusion reactors went critical. The resulting explosion killed 8,000 Council soldiers who had been searching the facility and rendered the planet useless for mining. They destroyed an entire colony just to kill 8,000 soldiers. Supreme Counselor Texlar couldn't believe the report. The economic damage alone. They don't care about economic damage, Velthor replied via subspace communication. They care about making us hurt. They care about making this war too expensive for us to continue. Then we will hit them harder, Texlar declared. We will show them that the Council cannot be intimidated. But the attacks didn't stop. They accelerated. Human wolf packs, small groups of ships operating independently, began appearing throughout Council space. They didn't attack military targets exclusively. They hit supply convoys, civilian transports, research stations, and trading posts. They struck without warning and vanished before Council forces could respond. The Council species, who had lived in peace for thousands of years, suddenly found themselves afraid. Afraid to travel. Afraid to live on border worlds. Afraid of these hairless primates who fought like demons and seemed to be everywhere at once. How are they doing this? Councillor Vistana demanded during an emergency session. They're primitives. They barely have FTL capability. They had barely developed FTL capability, corrected Intelligence Director Mortek. They've been studying our technology for 6 months. They learn fast, faster than any species we've encountered, and they're not fighting the way we fight. They're not trying to hold territory or win decisive battles. They're trying to bleed us. To what end? They cannot win, can't they? Mortek displayed a galactic map covered in red marks. These are human raids in the last month alone. 237 attacks across 67 systems. We've lost 12,000 soldiers, 43 ships, and countless civilians. Our economy is starting to feel the strain. Member species are demanding we end this war. We are the Galactic Council, Texlar roared. We do not surrender to primitives. With respect, Supreme Counselor. Velthor's voice came through the chamber speakers. They're not primitives anymore. We made them our equals by forcing them to fight, and they're better at war than we are. The chamber fell silent. No one wanted to admit it, but they all knew it was true. The breaking point came 3 months later at the Battle of Korshan. Korshan was a council fortress world, home to the Second Fleet and protected by orbital weapons platforms that could crack moons. It was considered impregnable. The council had stationed their fleet there as a show of force, daring the humans to attack. The humans accepted the challenge. They didn't attack with ships. They attacked with information. Human agents, having infiltrated council networks over months of patient work, identified every defensive weakness, every supply route, every communication protocol. Then they struck. The attack began with a virus that disabled the orbital platform's targeting systems for exactly 90 seconds. That was all the time the human fleet needed. 60 ships appearing from multiple FTL vectors fired kinetic harpoons at predetermined coordinates. The platforms unable to track their attackers died one by one. Then came the missiles. Thousands of them. Each one programmed with targeting data stolen from council networks. They knew exactly where to hit, exactly how to penetrate council shields, exactly where each ship's weak points were. The Second Fleet, 250 ships strong, fought back with desperate courage. They destroyed 40 human vessels, but it wasn't enough. The humans fought with a combination of stolen council technology and their own innovations, using tactics that were unpredictable and brutal. But the worst part wasn't the battle itself. It was what came after. As the Second Fleet began to retreat, damaged but still functional, the humans did something unprecedented. They hacked into the council's communication network and broadcast a message across every council world simultaneously. President Martinez's face appeared on billions of screens. Behind him stood rows of human soldiers, their weapons ready, their faces hard. People of the Galactic Council, Martinez began. For 6 months you've been at war with humanity. Your leaders told you this would be a quick campaign to pacify a primitive species. They lied. We've destroyed your fleets, raided your worlds, and killed thousands of your people. Not because we wanted to, but because you left us no choice. He paused, letting his words sink in. You call us primitive. You call us barbaric. Maybe you're right. We've been fighting wars since before we had written language. We've perfected the art of killing over 10,000 years of practice. We know every trick, every tactic, every method of making an enemy suffer. And we will use all of them if you force us to. The camera pulled back, showing more human soldiers. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. All armed with weapons that combined council technology with human innovation. But we don't want this war, Martinez continued. We never did. We just wanted to be left alone to develop at our own pace. You forced this fight on us and now you're losing. You've lost ships, soldiers, and civilians. You've lost the sense of security that the council has provided for thousands of years. And you'll keep losing until you accept a simple truth. Humanity will not be conquered. Martinez leaned closer to the camera. I'm speaking directly to the people now, not your leaders. Your government sent soldiers to die on Earth. They sent fleets to be destroyed at Mars and Korshan. They've spent your resources and your lives on a war they cannot win. How many more of your children need to die before you demand peace? The broadcast ended, but the damage was done. Across council worlds, citizens began demanding their governments explain why this war was still happening, why their soldiers were dying to conquer primitives who were clearly anything but primitive. The council's unity began to crack. Counselor Vistana was the first to break ranks. Her crystalline people had lost an entire colony to human raids, and she could no longer justify the casualties. She called for peace talks. Others followed. One by one, council members who had voted unanimously for war began demanding peace. Not because they believed humans were their equals, but because they couldn't afford to keep fighting them. Velthor received the orders 3 days after the broadcast. Cease all offensive operations. Prepare for peace negotiations. The war was over. He should have felt relief. Instead, he felt only a profound sense of failure. Not military failure, he had done his duty. Moral failure. The council had attacked humanity, believing them to be primitives who needed guidance. They had instead awakened something that had been sleeping, something that remembered how to fight wars that consumed everything. And now the galaxy would never be the same again. As he prepared his fleet to withdraw from human space, Velthor couldn't help but wonder what would happen when humanity finally did join the galactic community? Would they bring their warrior nature with them? Would they teach other species the brutal lessons they had taught the Council? He didn't know, but he feared the answer. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council looked different now. The same 12 species sat in their designated spaces, but the confidence that had filled the chamber 18 months ago was gone. In its place was something the Council hadn't felt in thousands of years: fear. The human delegation entered through the main doors, and every eye turned to watch them. President Martinez led the group, flanked by Admiral Sarah Chen's replacement, Admiral Marcus Webb, and a dozen human diplomats. They wore simple suits rather than the elaborate robes Council members preferred. They carried no weapons, but somehow they seemed more dangerous than any army. Supreme Counselor Thexlar stood, his forearms spread in a gesture of welcome that felt hollow. President Martinez, on behalf of the Galactic Council, we welcome you to these peace negotiations. Martinez nodded curtly and took his seat at the central table. No pleasantries, no diplomatic niceties, just business. Let's not waste time pretending this is anything other than what it is, Martinez began. You attacked us. We fought back, you lost. Now we're here to discuss terms. Lost is a strong word, Counselor Vistana began. You lost, Martinez interrupted. You sent 500 ships to pacify Earth. 300 are debris. Another 100 are damaged beyond repair. You've lost 17 colony worlds, either to our attacks or because your own people evacuated them out of fear. Your economy is in crisis. Your people are demanding an end to this war. You lost. The silence in the chamber was absolute. No one contradicted him because everyone knew it was true. What are your terms? Thexlar asked quietly. Martinez slid a datapad across the table. First, reparations. You destroyed our orbital infrastructure, killed 70,000 of our people, and forced us to destroy our own cities to prevent you from taking them. We want compensation. Impossible, Thexlar said. The Council cannot be seen to pay tribute to. You can call it whatever you want, Martinez said flatly. Call it reconstruction aid. Call it a goodwill gesture. I don't care. But you're going to pay for what you destroyed. Admiral Webb leaned forward. Second, you will formally recognize human sovereignty over every star system within 50 light-years of Earth. No Council ships, no Council stations, no Council influence without our explicit permission. 50 light-years? Thexlar's voice rose. That includes 17 systems we designated for resource extraction. Should have thought of that before you tried to take them by force, Martinez replied. Those systems are ours now. You want the resources? You negotiate trade agreements like civilized people instead of sending warships. Counselor Mortek, the intelligence director who had warned them about human capabilities, spoke up. And your third demand? Martinez smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. We want a seat on the Council. Full membership, full voting rights, including veto power. The chamber erupted. 12 voices shouted at once, each expressing shock and outrage. A species that had barely achieved FTL wanted to sit as equals among civilizations that had mastered the galaxy. Silence! Thexlar's voice cut through the chaos. When quiet returned, he fixed Martinez with a hard stare. You cannot be serious. The Council represents the pinnacle of galactic civilization. Species must prove themselves worthy over centuries before. We proved ourselves worthy, Admiral Webb interrupted. We proved it when we held Mars against 300 ships with 47. We proved it when we made you pay for every meter of ground on Earth. We proved it when we took the war to you and made you beg for peace. We are not begging, Vistana started. Yes, you are, Martinez said simply. You're here because your people are afraid. Afraid that if this war continues, they'll wake up to find human soldiers in their cities. Afraid that we'll do to you what you tried to do to us. You're here because for the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council faces an enemy it can't defeat. You are one species, Thexlar said desperately. We are 12 representing thousands of worlds. How can you possibly— Because we remember, Martinez interrupted. That's the difference between us. You spent 10,000 years evolving past war. You built a civilization that could wage war when necessary. We built a war machine that could maintain civilization. You had to remember how to fight. We had to remember how not to. He stood, and his delegation stood with him. You created this situation. You looked at us and saw primitives who needed to be controlled. You saw our violence and missed our restraint. You saw our chaos and missed our unity. You thought because we fight among ourselves, we couldn't fight you. You were wrong. Martinez placed both hands on the table, leaning forward. Here's what you need to understand about humanity. We have spent our entire existence fighting things bigger and stronger than us. We hunted creatures that could kill us with one swipe of their claws. We fought diseases that killed millions. We survived ice ages, droughts, and disasters that would have ended lesser species. We learned to kill mammoths with pointed sticks. We learned to split the atom. We learned to reach the stars despite every logical reason to stay home. He straightened. You thought your technology made you superior. But technology is just tools. What matters is the will to use them. And humans? We have will to spare. The silence that followed was heavy with understanding. The council had made a fundamental miscalculation. They had judged humanity by their technology, rather than their nature. They had assumed that a species that fought among itself would crumble when faced with external threats. They had forgotten that sometimes, the most dangerous predators are the ones that learn to hunt by hunting each other. If we agree to these terms, Thexlar said slowly, what guarantee do we have that humanity won't simply continue attacking council worlds? You have our word, Martinez replied. And before you scoff at that, remember that we could have destroyed your home worlds. We had the opportunity. We had the capability. We chose not to because we're not monsters. We're just people who refuse to be conquered. Admiral Webb added, we don't want to rule the galaxy. We don't want to destroy the council. We just want respect. Accept us as equals and we'll be the best allies you could ask for. Keep treating us as inferiors, and we'll be the worst enemy you can imagine. Thexlar looked at his fellow counselors. He saw fear in their faces, but also resignation. They had no choice, and everyone knew it. We will need time to discuss, he began. You have 1 hour, Martinez interrupted. After that we go back to war. And this time we won't stop with raids and skirmishes. This time we'll show you what total war really means. The human delegation left the chamber. As the doors closed behind them, the council sat in silence, contemplating the impossible situation they had created for themselves. Councillor Vistana was the first to speak. We have to accept their terms. We have no choice. They're primitives, someone objected weakly. No. Velthor's voice came through the communication system. He had been allowed to observe the negotiations remotely. They were never primitives. We just didn't understand what we were looking at. They are warriors who learn to be civilized, not civilized beings who learn to be warriors. There's a difference. But to give them a seat on the council, Thexlar protested, to give them veto power over council decisions, is the only way to ensure peace, Mortek finished. Because if we don't, they'll eventually destroy us. Not through superior technology or numbers, but through sheer, unrelenting determination. They don't know how to quit. They don't know how to give up. The only way to beat them is to kill every single one, and I don't think we could do that even if we tried. The vote took 30 minutes. One by one, each council member accepted reality. Humanity would join the council as full members with veto power. The age of council supremacy was over. When Martinez returned, Thexlar delivered the news with as much dignity as he could manage. The council accepts your terms. Welcome to the Galactic Council, President Martinez. Martinez nodded, then did something unexpected. He smiled genuinely for the first time since entering the chamber. Thank you, Supreme Counselor. I know this wasn't easy, but I promise you won't regret this. Humanity can be fierce enemies, but we're even better friends. As the meeting concluded and treaties were signed, Velthor watched from his ship and reflected on the past 18 months. The Council had tried to conquer humanity, and had instead been conquered by an idea that maybe, just maybe, being civilized wasn't about forgetting how to fight. Maybe it was about choosing not to, even when you could. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had arrived, bringing with them all their violence, their innovation, and their indomitable will. The Council species would have to adapt to this new reality. But as Velthor thought about humanity's promise to be good allies, he felt something unexpected. Hope. Maybe having warriors who chose peace was exactly what the galaxy needed. Maybe the Council had grown too soft, too complacent in their safety. Maybe humanity was exactly the wake-up call the galaxy needed. The war was over. A new age had begun. And somewhere in the Great Hall, as humans and aliens began the difficult work of building peace, someone asked the question that everyone was thinking. How did a species so primitive defeat us? Martinez, overhearing, turned and smiled. We weren't primitive. We were just getting started. Commander Alan Pierce hadn't heard his military title in over 30 years. At 78, his hands were rough from working in his garden, not from handling weapons. His back ached when rain came. His eyes needed glasses to see distant mountains. But his mind remained sharp, full of memories others wanted to forget. He lived alone in a wooden cabin in the mountains of what was once Colorado. The world had changed since the Great War. Humans now shared the galaxy with 23 alien species in what they called the Interstellar Coalition. Most people thought this was wonderful. Pierce wasn't so sure. Every morning he woke before sunrise. Today was no different as he walked onto his porch with a steaming cup of coffee. The sky was clear, stars still visible above the eastern peaks. He knew those stars better than most. He had fought battles near many of them. Another day in paradise, he muttered to himself, a habit from living alone so long. Inside his cabin, technology was sparse. He had a simple communication device that rarely made noise. The coalition government provided it to all citizens, even those who wished to be left alone. Pierce kept it only because his daughter Karen called once a month to check on him. Cabin walls held no medals or pictures from his military days. Nothing to remind visitors, if he ever had any, that Alan Pierce had once been called the war god of Nyx, the man who ended the greatest threat humanity had ever faced. That was another life. The coalition had made sure of that. After breakfast, Pierce walked to his small greenhouse where he grew vegetables year-round. Working with plants gave him peace. They didn't care what he had done. They didn't whisper when he walked by. Command override Alpha 7 Delta. Emergency activation. The voice came from nowhere and everywhere. Pierce dropped the watering can he was holding. That code sequence hadn't been used in decades. His heart raced as pain shot through his skull, a burning sensation behind his left ear where his military implant had been placed long ago. Implant reactivation complete, said the mechanical voice. Incoming emergency transmission. Pierce fell to his knees as images flooded his mind. A colony under attack, buildings burning, people running. The neural implant that everyone thought had been removed was sending data directly to his brain. Saw the colony's name. Haven. One of the newest human settlements in the Proxima Centauri system. Then he saw the attackers, massive ships with distinctive blade-like designs. No, Pierce whispered. It's not possible. The Vrex. The enemy that had nearly destroyed Earth 30 years ago. The enemy his forces had supposedly wiped out in the final battle of the Nyx conflict. More data streamed in, casualty reports, defensive capabilities, enemy numbers. Then a face appeared in his mind, Dr. Vanessa Clark. She was older now, her black hair streaked with gray, face lined with age and worry. She had been his chief science officer during the war. Everyone thought she had died in a lab accident 15 years ago. Alan, if you're receiving this, then my worst fears have come true. Her message played in his mind. The Vrex survived. They've been hiding, rebuilding. Now they've found Haven Colony where I've been working on Project Prometheus. Pierce stood up, steadying himself against the greenhouse wall. Project Prometheus. The contingency plan they had created together, after the war. A plan only 5 people knew about. A plan the coalition would have stopped if they had discovered it. The coalition defense force is 3 weeks away at best. Clark's message continued. By then, Haven will be destroyed, and the Vrex will have what they're looking for. You're our only hope, Alan. I've prepared everything. The coordinates are in the data packet. The old protocols still work. The message ended. Pierce stood still for several minutes, processing what he had learned. The Vrex had returned. Thousands of innocent people were in danger, and somehow Clark had maintained a secret channel to his implant all these years. He walked back to his cabin with purpose, his old soldier's stride returning despite his aged body. From beneath a loose floorboard under his bed, he removed a small metal box. Inside was a hand scanner that recognized his fingerprint. The device lit up, displaying coordinates that matched those in Clark's message. Pierce packed lightly, a few clothes, some food, an old photograph of his late wife. He didn't expect to return. 3 hours later, he stood before a mountain that wasn't on any official map. He placed his hand on a specific rock formation, and a hidden door slid open. No one had entered this facility in decades, yet lights came on automatically as he walked through the corridor. The bunker was cold and dusty but operational. In the main chamber sat a ship, the HFY Nemesis. It was supposed to have been destroyed after the war, all records of its existence erased. Yet, here it was waiting. Beside the ship stood an exosuit, the Ares platform. It was designed specifically for Pierce during the war, enhancing his tactical abilities and connecting him to weapon systems too dangerous to be fully automated. As he approached, both systems hummed to life, recognizing their master after 30 years of silence. A holographic projection appeared before him, showing Dr. Clark's face. "I hoped this day would never come, Alan," she said. "But I knew better than to believe the Vrex were truly gone." Haven Colony was established as cover for Project Prometheus, the complete archive of human military knowledge and tactical systems. If the Coalition experiment failed, if humanity needed to defend itself again, everything would be here, protected. The hologram showed images of Haven Colony. It looked peaceful: farms, research facilities, families. "The colony doesn't know what's hidden beneath them," Clark continued. "Only my team and I know. But somehow the Vrex found out. They want to destroy it, Alan. They want to ensure humans can never threaten them again." Pierce walked around the ship, running his hand along its hull. The metal felt cold but familiar. "You don't need to do this," Clark's message continued, as if anticipating his thoughts. "You've given enough. But if you choose to help us, everything is ready. The ship's AI has been updated with current star charts. The weapon systems are operational. The Ares platform is calibrated for your neural patterns." Pierce thought about his quiet life in the mountains, about the peace he had found after decades of nightmares. "The Coalition buried our history," Clark's final words echoed. "They made humanity forget what we're capable of when threatened. But someone needs to remember, Alan. Someone needs to remain the war god." Pierce climbed the ramp into the ship. Inside, the control room lit up, systems initializing. The neural link connected to his implant, bringing a flood of information. "Voice authentication required," the ship's AI announced. Pierce took a deep breath. With these words, he would leave behind 30 years of peace. He would become again what he had tried so hard to forget. "Commander Alan Pierce," he said, his voice stronger than it had been in years. "Activating Helios protocol." The mountain above opened like a massive door. The HFY Nemesis rose silently into the night sky, becoming invisible as its stealth systems engaged. Inside, the last war god of humanity prepared for battle once more. In the emptiness of space, an old soldier answered a desperate call for help. The HFY Nemesis flew through space faster than any Coalition ship. The old technology, hidden for 30 years, still worked better than anything humans were now allowed to have. As Pierce settled into the captain's chair, his body remembered. His fingers moved across control panels without hesitation. The neural link connected his mind directly to the ship's systems. Information flowed into his thoughts like water. "Time to Haven Colony?" Pierce asked. 42 hours at maximum speed," the ship's AI replied. Its voice was female, calm and familiar. "Show me everything we know about Haven." The main screen filled with images. Haven Colony was built on a planet circling Proxima Centauri, the star closest to Earth's sun. 5,000 people lived there, mostly scientists and farmers. The colony was only 3 years old. It looked peaceful in the pictures: green fields, small white buildings, a blue lake. "Now show me the attack." The images changed. 3 massive ships hung over the colony like dark clouds. They had the sharp, blade-like shape Pierce remembered from the war. Smaller ships flew down to the surface. Buildings burned. People ran. Pierce felt old anger rising inside him. The Vrex had nearly destroyed Earth during the Nix conflict. They didn't take prisoners. They didn't negotiate. They killed everything in their path. "Play Dr. Clark's message again," he ordered. Vanessa Clark's face appeared on the screen. "The Vrex are looking for Project Prometheus. They believe it's hidden at Haven. We both know what happens if they find it. Project Prometheus wasn't a weapon. It was knowledge, the complete military history and combat tactics of humanity. After the war, when Earth joined the Interstellar Coalition, the alien leaders demanded that humans give up their military technology and knowledge. They said it was too dangerous. Most of it was handed over, but Pierce and Clark had secretly saved copies of everything. They're afraid of us, Pierce said to himself. Even after all these years, the ship's AI spoke. Commander, I am detecting a transmission from Haven Colony. It appears to be a general distress signal. Let me hear it. A voice filled the control room. It was broken by static. This is Governor Frank Bennett of Haven Colony. We are under attack by unknown forces. Our defenses are failing. We have civilian casualties. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. The Coalition Defense Force is too far away. They're searching for something. The message cut off. Pierce's jaw tightened. Any response from Coalition ships? Negative. Nearest Coalition vessel is currently 3 weeks from Haven at standard speed. 3 weeks was too long. By then, Haven would be gone. Everyone would be dead. Project Prometheus would be in Vrek's hands. Show me tactical display of Haven system, Pierce ordered. A 3D map appeared. 3 large Vrek ships orbited the planet. 50 smaller attack vessels moved between them and the surface. The colony's weak defenses were almost completely destroyed. Pierce stood up. Prepare the Ares platform. I need full combat capability when we arrive. Warning, the AI said. The Ares platform may cause physical stress to your body due to your advanced age. Pierce laughed without humor. I'm already too old for this. He walked to the ship's armory. The Ares platform waited there, a full-body combat suit designed for him during the war. It was part armor, part medical system, part weapon. It would keep him alive and fighting even if his old body tried to fail. As the pieces of armor attached to his body, Pierce felt pain and then strength flowing through him. The suit connected to his neural implant. His vision sharpened. His hearing improved. Information about the ship, weapons, and mission flowed directly into his mind. For 30 years, the Coalition had kept humanity weak. They said it was for peace. Maybe they were right. But now, as the last war god prepared for battle again, Pierce wondered if peace was worth the price they had paid. Approaching Haven system, the AI announced. Stealth systems engaged. Pierce returned to the control room, each step easier as the Ares platform adjusted to his movements. On the main screen he could see Haven. From orbit it looked peaceful, but sensors showed the truth. Destruction spreading across the surface like a disease. The Vrek ships have not detected us, the AI reported. Good, scan for survivors. Approximately 2,000 colonists have taken shelter in underground bunkers. The colony was not built with serious defenses. These shelters were designed for weather emergencies, not war. What about Dr. Clark? Is she alive? The AI was silent for a moment, unable to confirm. However, there is unusual activity in Sector 7 of the colony. That area shows signs of advanced shielding not included in the colony's official plans. Pierce nodded. That would be where Project Prometheus was hidden, where Vanessa would be, if she was still alive. The Vreks are concentrating their search in that same sector, the AI added. Then we don't have much time. Pierce sat in the command chair and closed his eyes. Through the neural link, he became the ship. He felt its weapons, its engines, its sensors as if they were parts of his own body. Open a channel to the colony. Channel open, Pierce spoke clearly. This is Commander Alan Pierce of the Earth Defense Fleet. I am implementing the Helios Protocol. All remaining colonists should activate emergency shelters and prepare for atmospheric disturbance. In the colony's emergency command center, Governor Frank Bennett heard the message and froze. Around him, the few remaining colony leaders looked confused. Earth Defense Fleet? Asked Deputy Governor Maya Johnson. That doesn't exist anymore. And who is Alan Pierce? Bennett's face had grown pale. He was old enough to remember the war, to remember the stories. The war god of Nyx, he whispered. A nightmare the coalition wanted us to forget. Is that good or bad for us? Johnson asked. Before Bennett could answer, the sensors in their bunker detected something impossible. The Vrex attack ships were being destroyed. One after another, they exploded in silent bursts of light. On their screens, they could see nothing attacking them. Only the results. What's happening? Johnson asked. Bennett watched the destruction with a mixture of fear and hope. Humanity remembered how to fight, he said softly. In orbit, the Vrex finally detected the Nemesis. Their communication came through in the harsh, clicking language Pierce remembered from the war. Human vessel, surrender or be destroyed. This colony harbors technology belonging to the Vrex Imperium. Pierce didn't respond with words. Instead, he activated the Nemesis main weapon system, technology specifically, designed to target Vrex vulnerabilities. The Ares platform amplified his neural commands, coordinating attacks with deadly precision. What followed was not a battle but a systematic destruction. The Vrex had forgotten what humanity was capable of when pushed too far. They had forgotten the war god who had nearly ended their species. As Pierce guided his ship through the enemy fleet, memories of the old war filled his mind. So much death, so much loss. He had hoped never to fight again, but some enemies only understood strength. Some threats could only be answered with force. For Haven, he said quietly as he unleashed humanity's wrath upon those who had forgotten to fear it. The battle in space lasted less than an hour. The Vrex had not expected resistance, especially not from a single ship using weapons they thought were destroyed long ago. Their attack vessels exploded one after another, unable to track the Nemesis, as it moved invisibly among them. Inside his command chair, Pierce felt every move his ship made. The neural link let him aim weapons with just a thought. His old body ached inside the Ares platform, but the pain seemed far away. The suit kept him functioning, pushing medicine into his veins when needed, supporting his muscles when they tired. 2 Vrex capital ships remaining, the ship's AI reported. They are moving to protect the 3rd ship. Pierce could see them on his tactical display. The 2 warships were positioning themselves in front of the largest vessel, the command ship. They were sacrificing themselves to save their leader. The Vrex never retreat, Pierce said. They're buying time for something. Scan shows increased activity on the planet's surface, the AI confirmed. Vrex ground forces are converging on Sector 7, where Project Prometheus was hidden, where Vanessa might be. Pierce made a quick decision. Target the engines of all 3 capital ships. We don't need to destroy them completely. Just keep them from leaving the system. The Nemesis fired precise beams of energy that cut through the Vrex ship's propulsion systems. The massive vessels drifted, still armed but unable to flee or follow. Prepare a landing craft, Pierce ordered. I'm going to the surface. Commander, that is inadvisable. Vrex ground forces outnumber you at least 50 to 1. Pierce smiled grimly. They'll need more than that. The small landing craft separated from the Nemesis, heading toward the colony. Pierce guided it through the atmosphere, aiming for Sector 7. Below, he could see the destruction. Farms burned, buildings lay in ruins, bodies lay in streets and fields. His anger grew cold and focused. This was why he had fought the Vrex 30 years ago. This was why he had earned the name War God. Not because he loved fighting, but because he hated what happened when good people couldn't defend themselves. The craft landed on the edge of Sector 7, near what looked like a research building. Outside, 5 Vrex soldiers were trying to break through a reinforced door. They were tall insect-like creatures with 4 arms and dark exoskeletons. Each carried weapons that could tear through normal armor. Pierce stepped out of his craft. The Ares platform adjusted to the planet's gravity. Weapon systems came online, displayed on his helmet's interior screen. The Vrex noticed him immediately. They turned, raising their weapons. Pierce didn't give them time to fire. His suit's built-in weapons activated. 2 energy blasts and 4 of the alien soldiers fell. The 5th got off a shot that glanced off Pierce's shoulder armor before a 3rd blast ended the threat. Pierce approached the door. It was heavily damaged but had held against the Vrex attack. He placed his hand on the control panel beside it. Commander, Alan Pierce, he said. Verification code Sierra 9 Omega. For a moment nothing happened, then the door slid open just enough for him to enter. Inside the lights were dim. Emergency power only. Pierce moved carefully, his suit scanning for threats. He found none. "Vanessa?" he called. "Dr. Clark?" A hidden door in the back wall opened. A woman stepped out, holding a weapon pointed at Pierce. Her hair was gray now, her face lined with age, but he recognized her immediately. "Hello, Alan," said Dr. Vanessa Clark. "I was beginning to think you might not come." Pierce removed his helmet so she could see his face. "Your message was convincing." Clark lowered her weapon and smiled. "You look old." "So do you." They stared at each other for a moment, two veterans of a war the galaxy wanted to forget. "How bad is it up there?" Clark asked. "I've disabled their ships, but there are still Vrex forces on the ground. They're all heading this way." Pierce looked around the room. It seemed too small, too ordinary to house something as important as Project Prometheus. "Where is it?" Clark walked to a blank wall and pressed her hand against it. The wall disappeared, revealing a long corridor leading underground. "This way, quickly." They walked down the corridor, lights coming on automatically as they moved. Clark spoke as they walked. "After the war, when the Coalition demanded we give up our military technology and knowledge, I knew they were making a mistake. Humans have always been fighters. Taking that away wouldn't make us peaceful. It would just leave us vulnerable." "So you saved everything," Pierce said. "Not everything. Just enough. The essential knowledge, the core technologies, the history of our conflicts, and how we resolved them. I hid it all in Project Prometheus." She glanced at Pierce. "Named after your old call sign." Pierce nodded. During the war, he had been Prometheus in coded communications, the Firebringer, the one who gave humans the tools they needed. They reached a large circular room. In the center stood a simple pedestal with what looked like a small crystal cube on top. "That's it?" Pierce asked. "That's it. Everything humanity might need if the Coalition failed us. All our military knowledge compressed into quantum storage." Clark picked up the cube carefully. "This is what the Vrex want to destroy. With this gone, humans would never again be able to fight the way you just did." A loud explosion shook the facility. Dust fell from the ceiling. "They've found us," Clark said. "We need to go." Pierce replaced his helmet. "The landing craft is just outside. We can—" His words were cut short as the wall behind them exploded inward. Through the dust and smoke came a massive Vrex, larger than the soldiers Pierce had killed. Outside, its exoskeleton was decorated with markings of rank, a commander. Before Pierce could raise his weapon, the Vrex fired. The blast hit Clark in the side, sending her flying across the room. The crystal cube fell from her hand, skidding across the floor. Pierce fired back, but the Vrex commander was fast. It dodged, moving with surprising speed for its size. 3 more shots followed, each missing as the creature circled the room toward the fallen cube. "No!" Pierce shouted. He launched himself forward, ignoring the warnings in his suit that such sudden movement was straining his aged body. He reached the cube just before the Vrex, snatching it from the floor. Pain shot through his back and leg. Something had torn inside him. The suit injected painkillers automatically, but Pierce knew he was injured badly. The Vrex commander loomed over him, all 4 arms raised to strike. Pierce rolled to the side, avoiding the blow that cracked the floor where he had been. He fired again, this time hitting the creature's leg. The Vrex screamed, a high-pitched sound that hurt Pierce's ears even through his helmet. It struck again, catching Pierce's arm. The impact sent him sliding across the room until he hit the wall. Warning lights flashed inside his helmet. The suit was damaged. His arm might be broken, but the neural link was still working. And the Ares platform had one weapon that didn't require him to aim physically. Pierce focused his mind, activating the plasma discharge system. Energy built up around his suit, glowing blue-white. The Vrex commander hesitated, sensing danger. Too late. The energy released in a wave that filled the room with blinding light. When it faded, the Vrex lay on the floor, its exoskeleton cracked and smoking. Pierce struggled to his feet, The cube was still clutched in his good hand. He stumbled across the room to where Clark lay against the wall. "Vanessa," he said, kneeling beside her. Her eyes opened. Blood stained her shirt where the blast had hit her. "Did you get it?" Pierce showed her the cube. "I got it." "Good." Her breathing was shallow. "You need to take it away from here. The coalition can't be trusted with it." "Not yet." "I'm not leaving you." Clark smiled weakly. "Yes, you are. Because this isn't over. The Vrex will send more ships when these don't return. Project Prometheus needs to be protected. Humanity needs its war god a little longer." Pierce wanted to argue, but more explosions shook the building. The Vrex were getting closer. "Go," Clark whispered. She pressed something into his hand, a small data chip. "These are the coordinates for the backup facility. Everything you need is there, a new ship, supplies." Pierce looked at the woman who had been his most trusted officer, his friend. "I can't do this alone, Vanessa." "You won't be. There are others waiting for you. People who remember what humans once were." Her eyes began to close. "Promise me you'll finish what we started. Promise me humanity will be ready next time." "I promise," Pierce said. He stood up, holding the crystal cube that contained humanity's military legacy. The pain in his body didn't matter now. He had a mission again, a purpose. The last war god of humanity limped toward the exit, ready to fight once more. Pierce made it back to his landing craft just as more Vrex soldiers arrived at the research building. He sealed the door behind him and launched quickly, the small vessel shaking as enemy weapons fire hit its sides. The Ares platform was damaged, and his body was failing beneath it. Warnings flashed across his helmet display. "Return to the Nemesis," he ordered the craft's autopilot. As the vessel climbed through the atmosphere, Pierce looked down at the colony. Fires still burned across the settlement. But there were signs of life too. People emerging from shelters, looking up at the sky where the Vrex ships now drifted powerless. The cube felt heavy in his hand. Project Prometheus, the sum of humanity's military knowledge and technology. The thing the coalition had tried to erase. The thing the Vrex had come to destroy. And Vanessa was gone, his friend, his partner in this long secret mission. Pierce felt a deep sadness but pushed it aside. There would be time for grief later. Now, he had to make sure her sacrifice meant something. The landing craft docked with the Nemesis. Pierce limped to the command chair, each step bringing fresh pain. His left arm hung useless at his side. Internal scans showed 3 broken ribs and damage to his liver. The Ares platform was pumping medicine into him, but it could only do so much for a 78-year-old body. "Status report," he ordered, as he eased into the chair. 2 Vrex capital ships remained disabled in orbit, the ship's AI responded. "Their weapon systems are still operational, but they cannot pursue. Ground forces are regrouping near the colony center." "And the colony leadership?" "Governor Bennett has issued a general broadcast. Colony defenses are being reestablished. They are treating wounded and counting survivors." Pierce nodded. "Open a channel to Governor Bennett." The main screen showed a tired-looking man in his 50s. His face was dirty, his clothes torn. Behind him, people moved quickly through what looked like a medical center. "This is Governor Frank Bennett," the man said. Then his eyes widened. You're him, the war god." "Commander Alan Pierce," Pierce corrected. "I've neutralized the Vrex fleet, but their ground forces are still active. You need to gather your people in defendable locations." Bennett nodded. "We're already doing that." "But Commander, why are you here? How did you know we were under attack?" "The coalition said the nearest help was weeks away. I received a direct message from Dr. Vanessa Clark." Bennett's expression changed. "Dr. Clark? She was just a researcher here. At least that's what we thought." "She was much more than that," Pierce said. "She was preparing for this day." "What day? What's happening, Commander? Why did these aliens attack us?" Pierce considered how much to tell the governor. These people deserved to know why they had suffered, why some of them had died. But revealing too much about Project Prometheus could put them in more danger. "They're called the Vrex," he said finally. 30 years ago, they nearly destroyed Earth. We thought we had defeated them, but some survived. They attacked your colony because they fear what humans might become if we remember our strength." Bennett was silent for a moment. "Dr. Clark is dead, isn't she?" Pierce nodded. "She died protecting something important, something that might help make sure this never happens again." A new alarm sounded on the Nemesis. The ship's AI spoke urgently. "Commander, long-range sensors detect 3 vessels entering the system. Configuration matches Coalition Defense Force." Pierce wasn't surprised. The battle would have been detected by Coalition monitoring stations. They would want to know what had happened. They would want to take control of the situation. And if they found out about Project Prometheus, they would take it away, just like they had taken everything else after the war. "Governor Bennett," Pierce said, "the Coalition is coming. They'll be here in a few hours. When they arrive, tell them whatever you want about me. But there's something you should know." Pierce explained quickly about the Coalition's fear of human military power, about how they had forced Earth to give up its defenses after the war, about how they had left human colonies vulnerable. "They'll tell you this was an isolated incident," Pierce finished. "They'll say the Vrex are gone now. But Vanessa believed they would come back stronger, and I believe she was right." Bennett looked troubled. "What are you saying, Commander? That the Coalition has been lying to us? That we can't trust them?" "I'm saying you should keep your eyes open, remember what happened here, and remember that when the Coalition was too far away to help, humanity defended itself." Another alarm sounded. Pierce checked the display. "The Vrex forces on the ground are moving. They're heading for your main shelter area." Bennett's face paled. "We don't have enough weapons to stop them." "You won't need them." Pierce straightened in his chair, ignoring the pain. "I'll handle this." He closed the communication and activated the Nemesis's targeting systems. The neural link let him see the VREX troops through the ship's sensors, 112 soldiers moving toward the largest concentration of survivors. "Target all. Ground forces," Pierce ordered. "Precision strikes only, minimum collateral damage." "Warning," the AI responded. "Your neural patterns show extreme fatigue. Precision targeting may be compromised." Pierce knew the AI was right. He was exhausted, injured. The link between his mind and the ship's weapons required complete focus. One slip and he might hit the very people he was trying to save, but he had no choice. The Vrex would show no mercy to the colonists. "Proceed with targeting," he said. Pierce closed his eyes. Through the neural link, he felt the ship's weapons, as if they were his own hands. He could see each Vrex soldier, each building, each group of humans hiding in fear. He separated them in his mind, marking targets with absolute precision. Then he fired. From orbit, the Nemesis sent down 100 thin beams of energy. Each one struck a Vrex soldier with surgical accuracy. In 30 seconds, the entire enemy force was eliminated. Not one human was harmed. When it was done, Pierce slumped in his chair. The effort had drained what little strength he had left. Warnings flashed throughout the Ares platform. His heart was beating irregularly. His blood pressure was dropping. "Commander," the AI said, "you require immediate medical attention." Pierce ignored the warning. "Time until Coalition forces arrive?" 3 hours, 17 minutes. Not enough time to fully repair the Nemesis or heal his wounds, but enough time to reach the coordinates on the data chip Vanessa had given him. "Set course for these coordinates," Pierce said, inserting the chip into the console. "That location is outside Coalition space," the AI noted, "in the area known as the Fringe Worlds." "I know. Maximum speed." As the Nemesis turned away from Haven Colony, Pierce looked one last time at the planet below. The fires were being extinguished. People were rebuilding already. Humans had always been good at that, picking up the pieces, starting again. He hoped they would remember what had happened here. Remember that when danger came, it wasn't the Coalition that saved them. It was a relic of their own violent past. A weapon they had been told to forget. The war god closed his eyes as the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. Project Prometheus was safe for now, but the battle was just beginning. The Nemesis traveled through space for 3 days. Pierce spent most of that time in the ship's medical bay, letting machines repair his broken body. The Ares platform had kept him alive, but just barely. Now it stood in a corner of the room, while Pierce lay on a bed watching stars pass by on a small screen. He held the crystal cube in his hands, turning it slowly. Project Prometheus. So small, yet so important. Inside this cube was everything the Vrex feared, the knowledge that had nearly destroyed their species 30 years ago. Approaching destination, the ship's AI announced. Sensors detect a small space station in orbit around the fourth planet. Pierce sat up slowly. His ribs still hurt, but the worst damage had been fixed. Show me. The screen changed to display a metal structure floating above a red planet. The station looked old, built from parts of different ships welded together. It wasn't pretty, but it was well hidden in this empty corner of space, far from Coalition patrol routes. Any life signs? Pierce asked. 12 humans detected, the AI replied. They are hailing us. Put them through. The screen changed again. A young woman with short black hair appeared. She looked to be in her 30s with serious eyes and a small scar on her chin. Identify yourself, she said. Her tone was military, though she wore no uniform. Commander Alan Pierce, he replied. Dr. Clark sent me. The woman's expression changed immediately. The war god himself. We've been waiting for you. She paused. Dr. Clark isn't with you? Pierce shook his head. She didn't make it. The woman closed her eyes briefly. We feared as much when we lost contact with Haven. I'm Captain Kate Walsh, formerly of Earth Space Command. Welcome to Sanctuary. An hour later, Pierce stepped onto the station. Captain Walsh met him at the airlock along with 2 armed guards. They looked at him with a mixture of respect and wariness. To them, he was a legend from history books. The man who had won the Nyx conflict, the last war god of humanity. We need to talk, Walsh said. The others are waiting. She led him through narrow corridors to a large room at the center of the station. Inside, 10 people sat around a table. They were all human, both men and women, ranging in age from about 30 to 60. Some wore pieces of old military uniforms, others dressed in civilian clothes. All watched Pierce enter with keen interest. Everyone, Walsh said. This is Commander Alan Pierce. An older man at the head of the table stood up. Commander, I'm General Ben Harper, formerly of the Earth Defense Fleet. Dr. Clark told us you might come one day, though we hoped it would be under better circumstances. Pierce placed the crystal cube on the table. The Vrex attacked Haven Colony. They were looking for this. Harper picked up the cube carefully. Project Prometheus, Clark's insurance policy. She's dead, Pierce said bluntly. Along with many colonists, the Vrex are back, and they're still afraid of what humans might become. The room was silent for a moment. Then a woman with gray-streaked hair spoke up. The Coalition will cover it up. They'll say it was pirates or some other threat. They won't admit the Vrex have returned. Walsh nodded. Dr. Clark predicted this years ago. That's why she created Sanctuary. Why she gathered all of us here. Pierce looked around the table. And who exactly are you? Harper smiled. We're the ones who remembered, Commander. Former military officers, weapons designers, tactical experts. People who refused to forget humanity's strength when the Coalition demanded we give up our knowledge. For 15 years, we've been preparing for the day when humans would need to defend themselves again. Pierce wasn't surprised. Vanessa had always been good at planning ahead. The coordinates she gave me, the data chip, she knew I would come here if something happened to her. Yes, Walsh said. And now we need to decide what to do next. A younger man with a beard spoke up. The Vrex won't stop with Haven. If they're back, they'll attack other human colonies, and the Coalition won't be able to protect them all. Or won't choose to, added another woman. Pierce understood their concerns. After the war, the alien leaders of the Coalition had promised to protect humanity in exchange for humans giving up their military power. But the attack on Haven showed the flaw in that arrangement. The nearest coalition ships had been weeks away. If Pierce hadn't responded to the SOS, everyone would have died. "What forces do you have here?" Pierce asked. Harper sighed. "Not much. 2 small patrol ships, some weapons we've developed secretly, about 50 trained personnel scattered across the fringe worlds. Nowhere near enough to fight the Vrex if they come in force." "But we have this," Walsh said, pointing to the crystal cube. "And now we have you." Pierce looked at these people who had been waiting for this moment. They wanted him to lead them, to become the war god again. He thought of his quiet cabin in the mountains, of the peace he had found growing plants and watching stars. That life was gone now. Vanessa's death had changed everything. "The coalition won't like what we're about to do," Pierce said finally. "They'll call it treason." Harper smiled grimly. "We passed that point years ago, Commander." "So what's the plan?" asked the bearded man. Pierce stood up straight, feeling his old authority returning. "First, we need to warn the human colonies, all of them. Tell them what really happened at Haven. Second, we need to find more ships, more weapons. The Vrex will be coming and we need to be ready. And third?" Walsh asked. "Third, we need to show the coalition that humanity remembers how to fight, that we won't be sacrificed for their idea of peace." Around the table, faces showed determination, maybe even hope. These people had been waiting for someone to lead them, waiting for the war god to return. Pierce placed his hand on the crystal cube. Vanessa believed humanity needed to remember its strength. She died protecting that belief. I won't let her sacrifice be wasted. 3 weeks later, coalition officials arrived at Pierce's mountain cabin in Colorado. They found it empty, with no trace of where he had gone. The same day, 5 human colonies received encrypted messages warning them about the Vrex. Security systems that had been dormant for decades came online. People who had been trained in secret began to organize defenses. And somewhere in the fringe, worlds aboard a ship called the Nemesis, the last war god of humanity, prepared for one final battle. On Haven Colony, Governor Bennett stood with coalition representatives as they dedicated a memorial to those lost in what they officially called the pirate attack. After the ceremony, a young lieutenant approached him. "Sir, do you really believe it was pirates?" she asked quietly. Bennett looked at the sky, remembering the day when humanity's forgotten warrior had answered their desperate call. "No, Lieutenant. It was something much worse. And when they come again, we need to be ready." "The coalition says they'll protect us," the lieutenant said. Bennett touched the small crystal chip hidden in his pocket, a copy of part of Project Prometheus that Pierce had given him before leaving. "Perhaps. But as Commander Pierce reminded me, sometimes humans need to protect themselves." Across the galaxy, a forgotten legend had awakened. The war god had returned, and this time, humanity would remember its strength.